So I'm going to go to Chrome, and what I want to do is go to Canvas, and in Canvas we had our week 11 sample app, and I want to download that and extract that, and I'm going to start with that project, and that was the Serialized project, the very original one. So let's see if I can make that happen. I have too much stuff. So in Canvas, it was week 11. This Connectivity 3 sample application. I'm going to grab that. And then I'm going to extract it. And I'm not sure quite what you can see. And then I'm going to go back to Visual Studio and open that project. So let me get that back to being shared. Start page, that's the right way. Okay, so I'm going to open my serialized project. And what I want to do is, hang on, I'm not seeing the chat. I've lost the chat. So send me an email or something if I'm losing you. Or just unmute yourself and yell, okay? So in this project, if you remember, we had several different things going on. We have our Serializer class that we used to cause that encryption to happen. It's a console app, so our program.cs file is running it. We had our person class that was what was being used to encrypt, the data adapter that connected to the database, and finally our Serializer class that gave us the code to do that encryption. Because we have all these classes here, I want to just use this solution and create a new project. And that way we'll have access to all of these things. So I want to add a new project. And I'm going to make this a Windows Forms application. And let's name it Family Serialize. Now, once I've got that project created, I'm going to make it my startup project. And then I'm going to rename my form. And I want this to be FRM Family. And what I'm going to do with this application here for the very first step is to create our grid view control for our family table that we had. So I am going to connect to SQL Server. So if you need to run the batch file to be able to connect, you might have to close Visual Studio and do that. I'm hoping that I have it all set where I can run it. We'll see. As you can tell, it's a little confused with all the things I'm trying to do. Come on, you can do it. It doesn't think it can, does it? There it goes. So you can go ahead and do this if your computer is responding. I'm still getting everything installed. I'm going to go to data sources and try to access our SQL Server as my data source to pull in that family database. So let's see if I can access my data sources. It's like Zoom is locking it up. So we'll see if everything's going to be okay or not. That's what we wanted to do, right? Is beta test or test it. So I want a data source. You've already got this all created. Good job. I just want to go to the database, create a data set. I'm going to have to create a new connection, and I want to connect to our SQL server. My server name, CIS151 comma 9191. And then hopefully it's going to show me all of the databases, and I'm going to go find my database. And that should be enough. I can test that connection. Yay. Now, let's save that connection. And it's going out to the database, of course, you know, and getting all of our information. And I'm just going to pick my family table that I have already created. Like I said, I'm just recreating that week 10 assignment where we put our family table on the SQL server. Definitely being resource intensive. I'm going to drag my family onto my form. What do we got? Devin, download the new batch file. You can get there. It's really small. Jason's on it. That's right. Okay, so I've got, and as slow as my computer is going right now, you'll be able to catch up. I'm going to take this family table and drag it onto my form. Kind of move my form around just a little bit. Come on, form. My form does not want to listen to me. Now, in that assignment for week 10, we were supposed to create this data grid from our SQL server and then update the columns so that everything looked all pretty. We're not going to get that fancy with it tonight. I am going to go in on my form properties and change my text property so that I have a meaningful name here for my form. And this will be my family table in SQL. And I'm going to resize this data grid a bit. And then one thing that we didn't do in our application that I am going to do is add a label down here at the bottom for a message. So let's grab a label. And I'm going to set it down here in the bottom. And I want to name this LBL message. And I think I'm going to make the fore color be sort of red. I don't want it to be too alarming, but kind of noticeable, like that. And then I'm going to change my text property to be blank. Now, I should be able to run this, right? We generated everything, so let's see what happens. It'll take a while. There it goes. I think it's running. So we have to try this on another platform to see if it's faster or slower or just my computer. Now, I see my family table. That was just what I was wanting. So this was a quick, easy application for us to create. And we have all of our information. Again, it's not the most beautiful, but I'm going to go ahead and use this navigation bar to update our application to do the serialization. So if you remember in the assignment, it says to serialize the family table, and it doesn't really give you a lot of information, kind of leaves it up to you. So when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, I think what I'll do is add another icon, another button to this toolbar up here that allows the user to back up all of this family data to serialize it. And then just for simplicity, I'll add a second button that brings up another form that lets us view that serialized data, and then also in an unserialized manner so that we have everything just the way we need it. So that's just an option. Could do it many, many different ways. Lots of people did it lots of other ways, but that's a way for us to do it. Where is the batch file? Let's see. It should be in the setup module. Oh, yay, look at that. Go, TJ, thank you. Okay, so I get so happy there that he was able to give him that file. Kind of lost track of where I was going. So what I need to do before I can update my application to write this serialized data to the database, I need to create my table. So I'm going to go to the SQL Management Studio and create a new table. So let me see if I can switch which screen you're seeing. This is like a really good reason to not have very many windows open. Where is this other thing? There it is. So I have the SQL Management Studio open, and I have drilled down into the databases to find my database, and then I've gone into my tables, and I actually just deleted my table that I used for the family application so that we could recreate it. So let's do that. I'm going to refresh. You know how bad it's going to be. It's going to tell me that my table already exists, but we'll see. So I'm going to create a new table. And again, I've got the code right here that we could use to batch it. I don't know, Ben, what does it say when you try to do it? Does it give you a message? It just doesn't do anything? Do you see it in your data sources? I don't know why it wouldn't. I don't have any idea, but come with us. Oh, so it's just not going to let you do it. And you created a Windows Form app. Maybe save all and see if it can access your data source after you've saved. I'm not sure. Come with us to create the serialized table, and I'm just going to hope it works by the time we're back. We'll see what happens, because sometimes database stuff is just a little kludgy. We've all seen that. Now, for our table here, we only want 2 columns. We're going to have our ID field, which I called family underscore ID. Oh, yeah. Yes, startup SQL 2. That's why my computer's being so slow. I have Visual Studio going a few times and SQL. So we're going to create this table, and we're going to have 2 columns, our family ID and our data that's going to be the varchar max size. So I'm going to go back to the design window, and I want fam underscore ID. This is going to be an integer, no nulls. We want our family ID to be our identity field. So I'm going to find our identity specification, change it from no to yes. And then we can make this be our primary key. Now, our second column is data, and we're going to make this varchar max, because we just don't know exactly how long this data is going to be. And that's all we need for our table. So I'm going to save it as, let me double check because I want to make sure I make it the same. Oops, I better. Family underscore serialized. That should work. Now that is all we need for our table. So sorry you had to start up SQL Server for it, but it's an important table. So now in SQL Server, we have our family table, our original information, and now we have a new table to hold those serialized rows. Now my family table, I'm going to take a look at it. I'll right click and choose design, just so everybody can see how it's set up. Because if we have some differences, then we might need to take that into consideration in our code. But I just have the first name, last name, relationship, hometown, and age. So the family ID is also set up as an integer, and it's set up as the identity field. The only other integer in the table is the age. Now I'm just going to go back to Visual Studio, because this should be everything that I need for the table. Sure, what do you want to see the code? Okay, so there's the script for our table. So you can run that script if you want, or you can use the design mode. So either way is fine, but I'm going to go ahead and leave SQL Studio now and go back to Visual Studio if I can find it. I think that's it. Phew. I named it family_serialized. So that code, that SQL script should have that in it if you want to run that. Just copy and paste it. Just make sure to change that use statement to use your database. Now, how are you doing? If everybody's doing okay, we're going to start updating our application here. So right now we just have our data source that is our data grid. We're going to see if Ben can get to his. Okay, Jevin, I understand. That's how mine feels. Now, Ben, if it's not working, we might want to delete that data source and recreate it. Maybe something didn't go right in communicating with the server when it created it. Get things. So let's get to updating this. What I want to do is create a new button up here in the toolbar. So when we click up there, we get the new button icon or the new item. And I want this to be a button. So I'm going to name this. Let's give it some text first, since I'm at my text property. This is going to be encrypt. Let's call it backup. We'll say backup family, because we know that this backup is going to be encrypted, but it's not necessarily important to our user. So that's what this button is going to be. It's going to be to set up our encrypted backup. So I'm going to change the name to tool strip button. We'll just make it backup. Changing my mind. And then I want to change the image, but I don't have any good ones on my computer. So I guess I'll leave it as that. If you have any good ones, go ahead and change it to something that would be meaningful. Now, when somebody clicks this button, what we want to do is take all of the rows in our family table and copy them to our serialized table. When we're doing that copy, we want to go ahead and cause that encryption to occur. So I'm going to double click on this and be ready to create some code. Before I can do that though, I need to get some of these class files copied from our serialization project up to our new project. So let me collapse a couple of things, get my form out of the way. And if you already have the table too, if you're mad. What's it say? I bet our chat put something weird in it. Ben, we took the family table as our data source. Okay, Perry, you got him that query, because we won't need that table for a little bit. So if you can send it to him. Now, what we're going to do is a little bit of rearranging of our project, or actually some grabbing of code from our previous project. So I want to get the data adapter class. I'm going to go ahead and copy that up to this project. And I want the serializer class. So I'll copy it up to this new project. Now one-time offer to extend this meeting. Yes, thank you, Zoom. Okay, we get to extend. Unlimited minutes. Okay, so I get to keep you. Now, in our new project, we've just grabbed our data adapter and our serializer, but I didn't copy in the person because we're not using the person class for this project. We're going to use the family class for this project. So we need to create that real fast. I'm going to roll up the serialization project to kind of get it out of my way. And in our new project, our family serialized, I'm going to create a new class. Add a class. And I want this class to be family. Now, in my family class, the first thing I need to do is put in that badge that says members of this class are serializable. Because if I don't put that badge in, I'm going to get all sorts of errors when I try to use that serialize command against items of this class. Now, our class has some fields. Let's see. TJ, did you get one? That's what it should have, TJ. It's just the family ID and data. So this one, since it's going to be serialized, all our data is going to end up in that data field. So that's all we need. Okay, so back to our class here for our family. The first thing that we have in our family class, I'm going to put all of the data elements that are in our table. Hang on, I have this printed out so that I can see it. So first of all, our family ID is an integer, and we called it, or at least I did, fam_ID. And we want a string for our first name. And our last name. Our hometown. Next, we have our relationship. And this is where, if your table, your original family table was a little different, you want to make this match yours. The last thing we had was an integer to hold the age. Now, we've got all of these private data fields ready. My mouse can't reach. I'm going to select them all. And I'm going to go ahead and generate some encapsulation. And I'm going to use the quick actions again to generate a constructor. And that constructor, if you notice, has all of the different fields as parameters. And will it let me be super lazy? Nope, now I have to write my own constructor for the default with no parameters. I think I can handle it. So my default constructor, no parameters. And then we have a constructor with all the parameters. So this is our family class, basic and to the point, but that should do the job for us. That's everything that we need. So that defines our class and our table. So that looks good. Now there's a couple of changes we need to make to our serializer. Our serializer was working with that person object in our old application, and we've changed that now. So I'm going to change it to be family, and we'll say that it's going to be my family. And I'm getting an error, so I'm going to look at my family and get my namespace. And change that so that they'll match up. Now, as I'm working with the serialization with my family object, a couple of more places I need to change. My family. Of course, I could have done a change all, but we didn't really have that much. Now, we're getting an error on our data adapter, so we'll take a look at that. And then down here, we have some more family or person to family things. So I'll say if this is equal to family, I want to create a family object. My family. And we'll cast whatever we get back from our deserialization as a family object. And then we don't really want to do any output writing. So I'm going to comment that out. Okay, so if you're with me, I hope you are, we should be at a spot now where the only error that we're seeing in our serializer code is this call to the data adapter class. So let's look at our data adapter class. Our data adapter needs to have its solution updated, or its namespace. And that should get rid of that error that we were getting in our serializer code. Now I'm going to check some things though, looking at our data adapter. First of all, I got to check my data source. I have the old one, so I need to update that. It's not SQL anymore. CIS-SQL.otc.edu, comma, 9191. My initial catalog needs to be mine. Now our connect looks good. Disconnect looks good. Our insert code, right here, we're inserting into a table named records, and we have a table named family serialized. So we need to change that table name there. And this is in our insert code where we would be adding the records to our table. And then we need to change the table name in the get. So right now in our get, we're saying we want to select from records. We want to change that to select from family serialized, our new table name. TJ, we copied the serializer class from that original project. Do you have it? So most of what we're doing, we're just changing a little bit from that original project. Now in the data adapter, if you've changed the table name from records to family serialized, we shouldn't have any compile errors. We don't have things working by any means yet, but we don't have any errors that are standing out to us. Now we are going to come back and make a little bit of changes to our data adapter. as we're working on our project. But for right now, we are done with our serializer and our data adapter. For the moment, we have everything in place now to update our form so that we can use all of this information and serialize our data. I'm going to go to the form code, and I had left off double clicking on that new button in the tool strip. Yeah. Troubles, troubles, troubles. Why do you have errors? Can you show us your screen? Will it let you? Do you have that option? Oh, darn. So the biggest thing was making sure that your solution name, your namespace, is the same across all of those classes, because we copied those other ones from that other project. So our namespace could be a little different, and that'll give you a bunch of errors.
Can you hear me, Miss Riley?
I can.
Okay, this is Jason.
I see.
All right, under which one did we change? We changed the namespace on one of them, and I think it was Serializer. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, under the Serializer class, when you changed right there, that's where that family is giving me an error, even though I changed the namespace to family serialize.
Check your family class and see if yours is a little different.
Well, my namespace says family serialize on the family class.
And you got that serializable badge?
Oh, I do not. Where did we put that at? Right
above the word class. And it goes in those square brackets.
Okay. That's what I did wrong.
And I don't know if that'll give you a compile error. Let's see if that fixes it.
All right. Okay, I've got serializable in there now. No, it's still saying, the type or namespace name family could not be found. Are you missing a using directive or an assembly reference? So I don't know why it's not letting me have that.
And they're both in the same project.
Yeah.
You copied them in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait a minute. I may have the wrong one open. God.
Make sure and close them all, because that's what I should have said that. Mine, for some reason, was really good about closing all those other ones.
That's what it was. I had the wrong one open.
It won't let you get to Canvas, TJ? Devin, did you extract it after you downloaded it? You can't open it if it's still zipped. Jason, are you still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how's it going?
I have some errors. They are the name serializer, data adapter on line. Let's see what line it's on. 79. It says I have Serializer still on line 79. I have 79 lines on my data adapter class.
Oh, okay. Now make sure it's the same solution.
Okay. Well, I think it should be. Let me save all. Yep, it's the same one, and that's the one giving me the error. So it's line on the data adapter class, line 79. Okay, so you've got Serializer. Yeah, it's saying that I've got exactly the same as yours on there. It looks like. Do you have deserialized now? Because I can't quite read that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe I missed something. What else did we change in this data adapter class? Was there anything else that I may have missed?
Just the name of the table. So like up here where it was records, we made it be family serialized.
Yep, I've got that changed.
And that shouldn't matter. What kind of error are you getting?
It says the name Serializer does not exist in the current context.
It's got to be that namespace.
Aha, that's it. All right, that took away that error. And the name my person does not exist in the current context of line 30.
Ben, make sure your solution name is the same on all of your class files. And then we want to change everything that was doing person. Oh, good, you got it. Okay, person to family, everywhere. So we had quite a few places.
Oh, you're right.
Change it.
I see that. Ooh. Oh, okay. These are supposed to be commented out. I forgot. Okay.
We shouldn't have to, Ben, because they're all in the same solution, but you can do that. Sorry, he's texting too. Okay, if everybody's got rid of errors, either way.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Ben's going to add using, which would work too when we have different names. So I want to go back to our form now. And in the code for our form, we had clicked on our form's new button in this toolbar that we were going to use to say that we wanted to copy everything to our serialized table. So I'm in that event procedure for that button. I'm going to double click on it and I'm going to start processing. So we know that all of the table rows that we have are already in this data set that was created for us that's being displayed in this grid. So we have all the information that we need in the data set. So I think that we should just walk through that data set to get all of that family information. And when we're working with the data set, we can use the for each command. And first, we have to look at each table in the data set. Remember, our data set only has one table, our family table, but we could have multiple tables in our data set. So we have to put that within a for each loop just in case, even though we're not going to have a collection, we could. So I'm going to say for each data table TBL in my data source. Now my data set is named beginning with my database name. So each of yours will be different. It'll be your database name, but we want that data set object there in our for each command. And after our data set object, we want the tables within that data set. So for each data table TBL in the data set tables list. Yay, TJ. He's getting it. I created a button on my toolbar in my form up here, and then I double-clicked on it to go to that event procedure to create our code. Now, for each of the tables that we have in our data set, we want to look at each row that's in that data table. So for each data row, and I'll call that a row in TBL rows. So look at that collection of rows, and for each one of them, I want to do some processing. And what I'm going to do is create a family object. I'm going to call it my fam, and it's going to be a new instance of my family class. Now, I want to put all of my family fields in this constructor so that it's a complete family object. So I'm going to start out trying to get the row information, the individual fields out of this row. And the way I can do that is saying, for this row, the item that is at index 0, which is going to be my family ID, the first column in this table is going to be at index location 0 of my row. That's going to be my family ID. So I want to pass that in to my constructor. Now, when I do that, my family ID is an integer. So I'm going to cast it as an integer. We can code this many, many different ways. This will work for us though. Now, the next thing that we want is going to be a string, and it's going to be the next item in that row, which will be our first name. And then we'll have another string, and I'm just casting each of these as a string instead of using a convert method or .toString. That would be a fine way to do it too. So item 2 or index item 2 is going to be my last name. Then the next thing I have is going to be their hometown. And then my relationship is going to be subscript 4. And finally, the last thing that's in each row is going to be our age, because that's our last column. Within these square brackets, we could put the name of the column within double quotes to force it to search for that column. But either way will work, and I wanted you to be aware that you could do this way. So I'm saying, oh, okay, that row from that data set has all of these different items in it, and I want to use those items to construct a family object. Now that I've constructed a family object, I'm going to serialize it. So we're going to use our serializer, and we're going to say we want to use the serialize now method, and we want to do our myFam object that we just created. Now in our serializer code, remember when we do the serialize now method, let's look at it. Serialize now creates the data stream, does the binary formatting, applies the serialization, changes it to base 64, and then it calls our data adapter to do the insert. So by us calling this serialize now method, we're also going to be inserting that row into our table. Okay. So this is going to take care of that for us. So we've just basically done our conversion, right? Because we've said we're going to take every row that's in this data set and we're going to serialize it. So we didn't have to really do a bunch of magic things or anything here. Now, a couple of things that makes us think about, what if we have a user who just keeps clicking this button and we end up with like hundreds and hundreds of these serialized rows in our table? That wouldn't be very good. So really, before we could add all of these data rows into our serialized table, it would be really nice if we cleared that table out. You know, if we just deleted everything first, and then we just would go through and add them all. So that's, I think, would be a good idea for us. I don't know, what's it say, Ben? Oh, make sure your serialize now method, you changed it to want a family object instead of that person object. Okay, so if I'm going to create something to delete all of these rows before I run this, I need to do that in my data adapter. And my data adapter has all the code that accesses the database, so I'm going to go take a look at it. Now, in my data adapter, I see the insert method, and it's just almost exactly like a delete, right? Because instead of saying insert into family serializable, I can say delete from family serialized, and that's going to just delete every row in that table. So I think this insert method is a great one for us to copy. So I'm going to select it and copy it and paste it, and I'm going to rename it to be delete. Now, because I'm going to do a destructive delete and a wiping delete, I don't need any parameters. I don't care what family ID you're working on, I'm deleting them all. So I'm going to say delete from instead of insert into. And I want to get rid of these values and things. I don't need any of that stuff. Just delete from family serialized, and wham, that's going to delete them all. Cannot convert family serialized dot family to family. I don't know. Look in your serialize code and make sure you didn't type family member instead of family, because it looks like it's trying to create something different. Now, I'm still working on my delete here. So I've got my SQL command corrected, but it's called SQL-INS. That's not good. I'm going to make it SQL-DEL just because I am that OCD. And then down here, I'm going to say, oh, I want to run the command CMD-DEL using SQL-DEL. Now, I don't need this next statement, the parameters.add with value, because that was saying that we wanted to insert the data variable into our data column. But we do need this execute non-query. So I'm going to delete this line and make this one be CMD-DEL. Now that's going to give us a delete method that should take care of us. It's going to delete things from the family serialized table. So we could go back now to our form code and call this before we create all of our serialized rows. So I'm going to leave that there for a second so you can look at it. And then I'm going to go back to our form. and call that method before we add new rows. Delete the table rows, data adapter dot delete, and then we'll say add the table rows. Now, we haven't tested this yet, so we can have all sorts of fun when everybody tries to run it. So let's see what happens, because this is a big part of our assignment here of just getting all of these table rows in a serialized way. So I'm going to try to run it. And I've got all my data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, or how many I have. So I'm going to click my button now to do my new backup. Ooh, cool, look, I see all these events over here. That's nice. It did the inserts, you can see it right there. That's really cool. So it looks to me like everything worked, but I'm going to go to SQL Management Studio and make sure that I now have rows in my table. So let me refresh here, see if I've lost my connection. Come on. It won't show me my table. There it is. Now, on my family serialized table, we created it, TJ. Hang on, and I'll put the code back up so you can see it. Let me check to see if I've got rows. I'm going to select them. And I do have rows there in my encrypted table. Let me bring that code back up. And stop running. Now, before I go back to the data adapter and look at that delete code again, I want to do one more thing in this method. And outside of the for each, I want to update that message and make it say something nice like backup completed. And along those same lines, if I'm going to do that, then in the form load, I want to put something nice that says family data loaded. And in the save item click, those were both generated for us, by the way. We didn't do anything for those, but we are benefiting from them. We're going to say update complete. Okay. Lots of errors. Okay, let's look at our data adapter code first. So TJ, we added this delete method, and we used the insert method as our template. So we copied the insert method and we updated it to create a delete. So in our delete, our SQL code is delete from this table, and that will delete all of the rows out of the table. So I'll leave that there so you can kind of see what we did. Perry, make sure. Ben, did you create the delete method? What's your errors telling you? Sure, here's the delete method. You need to see the form. Here you go. So here's where we called it. Any luck, guys? Is it working? Yay. Okay, Ben, make sure that I was in, oh, okay. There is no argument given that. Did you find it, Ben? Yeah, Ben, the big thing is to make sure that your namespace is the same on everything. Because if you were looking at the classes down in this old project, you could have updated the namespace on the wrong ones. So just kind of go through all of your .cs files up here in our family serialized project and make sure they're all the same namespace. That'll cause a lot of trouble. Now, part of me kind of feels bad for doing this, because when I was figuring out how to do this code here for this backup button, it doesn't look like very much, right? It's just a few lines of code, but it took me some struggling and some experimenting to get it to work. So sometimes, you know, we miss out on opportunities because we didn't do the struggling. So I have no problem doing that because I want to see how it all works and be able to help everybody fit the pieces together. Because every time we do something, it's always going to be a little bit different than the last time. So we just have to get used to being excited by that and having fun.
Hey, Miss Riley.
Yeah?
I tried running mine, and it runs without errors.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not filling it as far as the new one, the new table that we created in SQL. So it's basically blank. Now, I guess my question is do we need to go ahead and set the names of the rows to be exactly like what they were in the other one, or does it do that for us? Does that make sense? Because all I've got in the new table that we created is fam_ID and then data.
That's right. That's all you want.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because I selected the top 1,000 rows to see if it inserted anything, and it didn't insert anything.
And then if you look at your data adapter, we just want to make sure that, okay. Let me bring it up here. That one did the insert method. So looking at the insert method, make sure that the SQL syntax looks correct. So what it's saying is insert into this table name, family serialized. So it has to match perfect.
Yes.
And then in parentheses, the column is data, and the values we're passing is that data string that was passed in.
Okay. Yeah.
So if there's a typo in that table name,
it doesn't. It looks identical to yours.
does it?
Yeah.
And if you look at your SQL Management Studio, does your table look like it's named the same there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's family underscore serialized. Capital family, capital serialized. So I don't know what I've done wrong, unless it's just not refreshing fast enough. I mean, I can try and exit out of this, because I know Dr. Ford said something about, sometimes they don't refresh as fast as you want them to.
Yeah, but that's more your updates to the actual database definition, like new tables. You know how we have all that trouble with it not refreshing. Your data is going to be pretty immediate. Let's run it again. Let's everybody run it again and see, because we had a few that were fighting some other errors too, and make sure everybody can get it. Now, I'm going to click my backup button and I see my message. And then, Jason, do you see this events tab over here in the diagnostic tools?
Yeah.
Can you look at it and see, are you getting these insert into statements?
All I've got is 80.net, execute reader, select family ID, first name, and basically my original query. That's it. That's all it's done.
So it sounds to me like it didn't run your method.
Oh, there it goes. Wow. Okay, there went a bunch. I have a bunch of exceptions being thrown. Okay.
What does it say?
Execute. I'm trying to pull it out where it's big enough that I can see it.
I broke it.
Exception thrown, system invalid, operation exception in system data, DLL. Execute non-query, keeps going in and out.
So in this execute non-query, that's what we're actually running to run this insert command. So to me, that's saying that it's finding some sort of error somewhere.
Yeah, it says execute non-query. Non-query requires an open and available connection. The connection's current state is closed.
Oh, okay. So maybe go up to the top and double check your connection string.
Okay.
And make sure your initial catalog is set to you.
Oh, mine is set to, wow, Dr.
Not
Ford.
You. We can solve that mystery. There it is, Ben.
Okay. Let's try that then. All right, I got some more errors. Let's see. Connection state. It's still saying it's not closed, and I changed it to mine. I don't understand. I changed it to initial catalog, and then you put in your username, right?
Right.
And that's it, just the username.
Check that data source because it was the old server when we started.
Okay, so your data source is CIS. I'm trying to read it. It's for some reason not showing up as clear as it was when you first started. CIS-SQL?
Yep. .otc.edu. comma 9191.
Comma 91?
Yeah, 2 9 1s. 9191.
Okay. Initial catalog. Integrated security true. Okay. Trying to save that. Oh, I think it may have worked that time. I got no errors. Let's find out.
I like that monitor thing, seeing all of that action.
Yeah, it threw a bunch of like 10 lines of something in there.
All right, that's what we want.
Oh,
working. Okay. Yay.
Right on. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, how's yours been? Deserialized now. He's working through it. Okay, what we're going to do next is our kind of our last step, but it's a long one. So we're going to create a new form. And at the top, we're going to show just a list box, and we're going to just display all those serialized rows. They're not going to be readable or anything, but that's okay, just to see them. And then in the bottom of the screen, we're going to show them in a deserialized manner. So yeah, TJ, we changed everything that was person to family, because we're using our family class for this one, and the old one used that person. You could do a find and replace if you want to replace them all at once. Just only do our new project, not our old one. He's still there fighting. Good job. Okay, so I want to add another button to my form because I think that's just going to be the easiest way to do it. And I could really just display this new form and stuff out of this same button that we already have. So that's an option too. But I wanted to keep it separate just to keep it a little simpler. So I'm going to create this new button. And my text, since I'm there, this one is going to say something like show backup or something like that, whatever you like. And then I'm going to make it be tool strip button show. And I think that'll work. I'd like a different picture, but that's all right. Now I'm going to double click it to put some code in. And now I'm ready. So now we have our new button show. In this one, like I said, we want to display a new form. So let's go ahead and create our form. We're going to put it in this family serialized project. We want to make sure we're getting in the right place. And I want you to notice how our project is getting kind of messy because we don't have our folders and we haven't put things into their separate location. So we start seeing why that really does matter. Ben, no, don't copy the program.cs because we're using a forms-based app. And if you copy that one was a console-based app. So it'll get confused. You can fix it, but it's kind of a mess. So I want to create a new form. And this one is going to be a list of all of the different backed up stuff. So let's call it FRM backup. Now in my backup form, I want to make a few changes here. First of all, I'm going to make this say list family backup. Anything else you want to change, go ahead, but I'll just get going here. Now in this form, what I want is, like I said at the top, I want everything that's encrypted. So let me pin this for a minute to use it. I'm going to put a label on here that's going to be encrypted backup. I'll make that a little bigger. And underneath that, then I'm going to put a list box. And for this one, because I'm going to be showing that encrypted data, I want to make sure that it has a horizontal scroll bar because I want to be able to scroll sideways. And I'll go ahead and do the regular scroll bar. Probably don't need it. Now, I'm going to name this one LST BX backup. And then I'm going to get another label. And we'll call this our viewable backup. And I want to, again, increase that font. Put a list box on there for this. And this list box will be LST BX view. We can go ahead and make the scroll bar always visible because it's a pretty small list box, so we'll probably need it. And one last thing, I just want an OK button for at the bottom. And when the user clicks that, we'll just close the window. So we'll make that one say OK. Going crazy, and I'll make it VTN OK. Now, in our nice form here, I'm going to go ahead and double click the OK button, and this dot close. Ish will be ready. So now that we have this ready to go, we need to update our previous code to call it. So I'm going to go back to our family form. And we were sitting here in this tool strip button show method where we had just double clicked on our new show button. And we're going to say that when somebody clicks on this button, we want form FRM backup. And we'll call it new form. And this will be a new instance of our backup form. And then I want to show it. And I'm going to use the show dialog because I don't want control to return back to this method until they click OK on that form. And then when they do, I want to update our message to say encrypted or backup view complete. So now our family form should be done. We shouldn't need to do anything else with it, but we're ready to work on our new form, our form backup. So in this form, what I want to work on is our form load, and that's all we're going to have. So in our form load, we're going to get our encrypted data displayed up here, and we're going to get our viewable unencrypted data displayed down here. And when the user clicks OK, we're done, we'll close it. So I want to create a form load event. So I'm just going to double click on a blank spot of my form. And when this form load occurs, we know that we have the data set available, but that's from our family table. And we want to actually get data now from our serialized table. So there's so many ways we could do it. We could create a data set in the same way that we did earlier, or we can use our data adapter and update it to get more information. So let's try it. The first thing I want to do then, as I'm looking at creating this form load, is to think about how I'm going to get this data from my data adapter to this method here in my form load. So let's go look at our data adapter. And down at the very bottom, we have our get method. And what our get method does is it gets all of the records from our serialized table, puts those into a reader object named reader, and then it loops into that reader and looks at each of those serialized records and calls the deserialize method to unencrypt them so that they're readable. So we want to use this method, I think, to update to get that data to fill up our form. So let me find where I am. So let's change this get's name to get serialized. And we don't need to change our select statement. That's fine. Everything looks good here. What I do think that it would be good to change is we want to return that data now to another method. The way this method was written here, this data never left this method. It just got deserialized, and in that deserialized now method, it got displayed on the console, and we're not doing things that way. We're not going to be putting things out to the console. So we need to change the way this works a little bit so that it can return some data back to the caller. One way that we can return data is by using a list. So let's say that we're going to use a list of strings in this case to return our data. And I'll call it my family. We could call it anything we wanted. And say this is a new list of string data type. No parameters to create that thing. So now we're saying, oh, I like that list. How can we make it to where we return that to our caller? Well, we need to change our method signature. So instead of void, we're now going to return a list of strings. And now it's like, oh, wait, you're not doing a return anywhere. Well, that's good. That means it knows what we're doing here. So now that we're going to use this list instead, we want to change the way we're handling this reader. We still want to create the reader. We still want a while loop to look at all of the data in there, but we don't want to call this deserialize now, right now. Is that good? So I'm going to change it a little bit. What I want to do instead, while we are getting records from the database, we need to be deserializing them and creating objects. What I'm going to stay instead is just creating objects. So we're going to create our family object, well, sort of, to do this. So what I'm going to do is just basically add all this string data to our list. My family, that's the name of our list. I want to add to it. And what I want to add is the information from this reader, the column that I want to find out of the reader. And now remember, here I could put that subscript 1, 0 being the ID column and 1 being the data column, or I can specify the column name within double quotes. So I want our data column, and I want it to be converted to a string. So that's looking good. I've got everything set, and I've created this list that I'm going to return back to the caller. Now, to return that back, I'm going to go past the finally, because the try-catch clause can cause some trouble with the compiler when we're returning. So I'm going to say, finally, we want to return our list, my family. So this method now should be ready for us to use. We've changed the name to get serialized. We didn't change the SQL statement. We added a new list object and updated our method signature to return a list object. In our while loop, instead of calling the deserialized method, we added to our list all of those items. So everything is ready there now. So I'm going to go back to our new form. And in that form load procedure, I'm going to use that new method that we just created. I gotta find it. Paper is awful. Why would I do this? Because I wasn't sure. Oh, to call the list class? Good question. Yes, to call the list class, you have to add system.collections.generic. Getting it? Okay, so that's gonna get us set. So in our backup form, in our form load then, I'm ready to call that new method that we just created. So first I'm going to allocate a list for it. And again, make sure you have that using clause, system.collections.generic. And remember, our list was of strings. We want a list of strings. And I'm going to call it my read, because it's our reader object that's giving it to us. And we're getting it from our data adapter. And we're getting it from the new get serialized method. So that's going to get us a list allocated that's ready. And we're going to call our get serialized method to fill that list with all of the information from our serialized table. Now, after we've got that list built, we can use a for each command to navigate the list. We're using strings. So for each string named item in the list my read, I want to update my list box backup, and I want to add, oops, I have items that I want to add. And those items are this item. Now, if you've got that in, we should be able to run it, and we should see all of our encrypted data now showing up in that form. Let's see. Now, first, I'm going to click my first button to delete all my data and recreate my backup. It looks like it did. Now I'm going to use my second button to display my form, and I see all my encrypted data there, and you're going to see it'll look really similar to each other, especially because they're all from the same family. So you should be seeing your encrypted stuff. Let me close it. Okay, so how you doing? How you doing? Good. Thank you, you guys. So all we have left then is that we need to add another method to get our unencrypted data, right? Our family, or get that encrypted data and then unencrypt it and put it in our list box. We're not going to mess with our original family table because that wouldn't be fair, because here we're only supposed to be working with our backup. So I'm going to go back to our data adapter, and the method that we created was get serialized. So now we want to kind of do the same thing, only we really do want to call this deserialize now method for each row so that we can deserialize them to add them to our list box on our form. So I think I'm going to create a brand new method because I don't want to necessarily copy all of this. So let's do that. Let me find my code here for this one. I'm actually going to call this new method convert, because we're going to be converting our data from the serialized format to the unserialized format. So let's create it. All right. Yeah, that looks right. So this is going to be public, and what we're going to have. And the reason that all of these methods are static is because we only want one instance of something getting our data. Oops, what's that? No argument given that corresponds to the correct data. Get rid of your parameter in your delete. We don't need any data passed to that. And that should fix it. So I'll call this convert. Like I said, we already have an insert method and I don't want it to be confusing. So our convert method then is going to do a lot of the same things and also a little bit different. There we go. Sorry, it's getting late. I was getting myself confused. We are not creating a method called convert. We already did that by just reading our data set and updating it. We did that conversion ourselves. So this method is going to be called get family. And in this method, we're going to create a list. And the first list that we create is going to be a list of our family objects. And I'm going to call that family list. And then I'm going to create a list of strings. And this list is going to be our encrypted data, my SER for my serialized. And it's a new list of strings. Whoops. Now, the reason I have two lists is because we're going to be working with two sets of data. We're going to be working with our string data that's serialized, and then we're going to unserialize that data and be working with our family objects. So And the first thing I want to do is load up our list of serialized objects. So we can just use our same method that we just created, or get serialized, to go out there again and get all of those serialized data elements. All right, so we've already used that. We know it works. Now, when we return with that list of strings, for each of those strings, items in our list, we want to deserialize that object. So what I'm going to say is that this is going to be a family object. I'm going to call it my fam. And it's going to come from the serializer deserialize now method. And what I want to deserialize is that item that I just got out of that list. So it's complaining at me that our signature for deserialize now does not say that it's going to return a family object. So we're going to have to update that. We will, but we only have a couple more lines of code here to finish. So I'll just leave that error for now. And because I'm going to take that serialized data and deserialize it, which is going to turn it into a family object, now I can add that family object to our family list. So that our list is ready to return to our caller. Now, because we need to return that, I do need to not have void up here. Instead, we're going to return a list of family objects. Now, after the for each is when I can return that list. So everything's all happy now, except for this call to the deserialize now, because it needs to be changed to return a family object. So I think that we can go do that. I'm going to bring up the serializer. Deserialize now. Instead of void, I want to return a family object. So in our original code, we noticed that they had this if statement, you know, to check to see if this was a family object, and if so, write out information about it to the console. And I've gotten rid of a lot of that stuff. It's all commented out because we are not writing a console application. So let's take a look and see what we might need to do here. We're going to say we have this object type. We've got our encoded data. We're going to set up our formatter and deserialize our data into an object named type. If that object is a family object, then we're going to cast it into a family object named my family, and we'll be all done. So looking at this, to me, I need to move this family declaration up here. Family, my family, and then delete the data type information down here. And after I close the data stream, return my family. It's mad, so I'm going to have to go ahead and instantiate the object. which is fine. It's just a pain. So now I've created a family object, I've populated it, and I'm ready to return it. And if you remember, we made those changes so that our data adapter would be happy with us. So if I go back and look, our new method, getFamily, that returns a list of family members, is now set up to deserialize each item in the list of serialized rows, and then add those to our list of family items, and then finally return that family list to our caller. Our caller is going to be our backup form. So in our backup form, back to deserialize, yes. You can see it. Now there's a lot of junk in here that we could clean up. You'd say family. Alrighty, so again, we've got our list of family type objects ready. So let's go back to our backup form. We're in our form load still, and we had already created a list of strings to hold our serialized data. Now we're going to create a list of family objects. I'll call it family list again. And it's a new list of family objects. Now to populate that list, oops, I can do it right there, can't I? What's your error say, Ben? Make sure your family class has a constructor with no parameters. Yeah, make sure your family class has a constructor with no parameters. So for this family list, we want to fill it by using our data adapter again, getFamily. Now, once we've got that list populated, we can again navigate through our list for each family. So for each my fam and family list, I can take that object and update our list box view. To add that item. And what I want to add is this my fam object that I just pulled out of that list. That should do it. Let's try it. Should be all done. So we've got our data showing up. I'm going to click the button to show the backup form. And I've got my encrypted data here. And then here I have something that doesn't look very good, does it? Not quite done.
Can I ask what yours looks like? You said yours doesn't look very good.
Oh, it's the bottom.
Yeah.
Where, yeah.
Does yours say family serialized.family?
Uh-huh.
Over and over? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Just making sure.
Yep, you're right. It's good. So what we're seeing instead of the data that we want to see is just information about that object. So we've got to do a little bit more there to pull out the right fields to get everything back to the way it's supposed to be. So let me find it. You know what I think it is? Let's look at our family class. And in our family class, we don't override the toString method. So that's what we're getting back, is that default class information for our family class. So I'm going to update the family class. Put in our override. Now what I'd like to return about our family objects, it's going to be some information to put into that list box. So let me, quit it. What I want to return first is going to be that family ID. And I'll use the private field. And then after the family ID, I'm going to do a space and first name and a space and last name and a space, hometown. And remember, if yours are a little different, you can change it up. Relationship. And age. Now I'm going to run it again and see if that takes care of our problem. And it's a really good example for us of how issues can come up in so many different places. And sure enough then, since we've created our toString, instead of getting the default output about that class information, we're going to get the output from our toString method. So you should be seeing the actual data now. So we kind of like went through the back door, went down to the river, did a barbecue, came back, and now we have our data here again. But in the meantime, hopefully you've seen that there are so many different ways we can manipulate this information and work with it. So for this form here, again, I could have used dataset objects, and we could have done dataset objects in the same way that we used a dataset for this family list view. So lots and lots of options. Yeah, let me bring up that serializer thing. Just let me know what you guys need. Wrong place. There it is. Okay, so you want serialized now. You seen it? Great. So make sure yours is working. And there were a couple reasons I wanted to do this. First, because I wanted to show you guys how to do it, and we don't have time in class for this project. But second of all, because I think it's a really valuable one for you. And it's just a way that you can get more familiar with manipulating all of these different objects and working with data and, you know, updating the database. Plus, it's what we need to do for the shipping project, so that should help. Form, family code, and tool strip button 2, yeah. So that would be this show button, was my second one. On this delete, so is it like this? So you should have data adapter dot delete, and then in your data adapter, this is what your delete method should look like. So make sure again you don't have any parameters or anything going to it. Now, another thing is I use lists to move all this data back and forth. We could have done arrays, we could have done array lists, all sorts of different object types. We also could have used the dataset object to move everything back and forth. And I kind of like doing that a lot too. So either way would move it all around. But if your project is good, then thanks for coming and get it turned in. And I will see you next week and have a great weekend. If your project is not good, hang on and we'll get you fixed. Thank you, guys.
Miss Riley, a question about that.
Uh-huh.
Are we just supposed to take this, what we just did, and turn it in?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So just upload it to TFS?
Yep.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, and then if you would for me, you know, submit that program completion document and just so that I know that you've got it submitted.